Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a hunt, but the criminals we're after, they're designed to be completely invisible. Get this, over $100 billion, and that's a conservative estimate of what's lost to fraud from U.S. government programs every single year. It's a staggering amount of money, and for investigators, the biggest problem is that a lot of it just seems to vanish into thin air. And that right there is the real puzzle, isn't it? Investigators aren't looking for a single person or some smoking gun. No, they're hunting for a ghost in the machine, a hidden pattern of crime buried across millions of transactions that, on the surface, look totally normal. Okay, so who exactly are these ghosts we're talking about? Well, they go by a name you've probably heard, shell companies. And let me tell you, they are absolute masters of disguise. So a shell company, it looks totally legit on paper. It's got a name, a registration, but that's it. It doesn't do anything. No real office, no employees, no product. It exists for one reason and one reason only, to hide who is really controlling the money. So you gotta ask, how can these ghost companies even exist? How is this possible? Well, it all starts with state laws that, maybe without meaning to, have created the absolute perfect hiding spots for them. Okay, so take a look at this. You've got these 4 states, Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, New Mexico. And what's wild is how each one has kind of become a specialist in corporate anonymity. Some offer low fees, others have super strong privacy rules, but the one thing they all have in common? They don't make companies publicly say who really owns them. Now, you'd think there'd be a law against this, right? Well, there was one meant to fix it, the Corporate Transparency Act. But here's the kicker. A recent change rolled it back for most U.S. companies. So that massive anonymity loophole, it's still wide open. So this legal cover, it creates this huge technical problem for investigators. Why? Because they're often stuck fighting a really modern crime with, frankly, some pretty outdated tools. And this slide just nails the problem. You know, using a standard spreadsheet is like having a security camera that's only pointed at the front door. Sure, you can see who gets the check, but you're missing the entire criminal conspiracy that's happening inside the building. All right, so to crack this case, investigators needed a way to see inside that building, right? They needed some kind of breakthrough, something that could finally connect all those hidden dots. And that first big breakthrough? It's a tool called a relational database. The easiest way to think about it is like one of those detective corkboards you see in the movies, you know, with all the strings and push pins. It takes all these separate clues, names, addresses, bank accounts, and links them all together into one big picture. And suddenly, with this tool, investigators could start asking some really powerful questions. I mean, they could instantly spot the stuff that just doesn't make sense, the totally obvious impossibilities and the duplicate claims. This is how you catch that first kind of simpler level of fraud. But of course, the real masterminds, they're smarter than that. They know investigators are looking for things like duplicate names and addresses. So what do? They create these super complex webs of different LLCs just to hide the fact that it's all one group secretly pulling the strings. So how in the world do you untangle a web like that? Well, you need a tool that doesn't just look at data. You need one that actually thinks like a network. And this is where something called graph technology comes into play. It's a total game changer. Instead of seeing data in boring old rows and columns, it sees a network. It sees nodes, which can be people or companies, and edges, which are the relationships that connect them. You know, like owns or paid or shares an address with. The way one expert put it, it lights up these suspicious clusters like a Christmas tree. And that's the whole point, right? This approach makes these hidden networks instantly visible. It just slices right through all the shell games and shows you the connections that criminals tried so hard to bury. So what used to look like hundreds of totally separate, isolated data points that seemed to have zero connection to each other, well, now it becomes that huge aha moment for investigators. They can finally see the entire criminal operation, with the masterminds sitting right there, smack in the middle of the web. But here's what's really powerful. This tech isn't just about solving crimes after the money is already gone. No, it completely changes the game by shifting the whole focus to prevention. Think about it. You can build a proactive defense system. So an impossible claim comes in, the relational database flags it automatically. A hidden network of shell companies tries to apply for funds? Boom, Graph technology spots that suspicious cluster instantly. You're meeting each risk with a specific technological counterpunch, stopping the fraud before the money even walks out the door. And this matters a lot. Because, the huge multi-million-dollar government payments, those are usually pretty locked down. The real vulnerability, the real leakage happens downstream. It's scattered across thousands and thousands of smaller provider claims. That's where the money vanishes. And that's exactly where these new tools can now stand guard. So we've gone from looking at a confusing, static list of names to a clear, living map. A map that shows not just where money is supposed to go, but where it actually ends up. It gives investigators the vision they need to finally catch the ghost. Which leaves us with one last, pretty powerful question to think about.